After 113 years without men, the alien girl tribe believed they had it all, until a lone man crash lands on their planet. The moment he steps out of his ship, the ground trembles and the tribe's worst fear comes to life. Hunted by a monstrous creature awakened by his arrival, he must navigate a world where survival means facing a power older than time itself. Will he fight for his life, or will the alien tribe's dark secrets destroy them all? This is just the beginning. Stay tuned to uncover the shocking truth behind the artifact and the deadly force he unleashed. Watch now to experience a gripping adventure like no other. Hey, yes. If you love thrilling sci-fi stories with a twist, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts. Let's dive into. The sky above the alien planet was a strange mix of vibrant purples and blues, unlike anything the protagonist had ever seen. His spaceship, damaged from the long journey through deep space, finally crashed onto the lush terrain below. The impact sent tremors through the ground, causing the trees to shake and the air to hum with an eerie energy. The ship's systems were failing fast, and he knew he had to act quickly. His heart raced as he stumbled out of the wreckage, unsure of what awaited him in this unknown world. The first thing he noticed was the silence. It was unnervingly quiet. No birds chirped, no wind howled. Just an absolute stillness that made him feel small and out of place. He looked around, taking in the alien landscape. Towering trees with glowing vines twisted towards the sky, and plants with colors he had never imagined grew in strange patterns on the ground. It was beautiful yet unsettling. He knew he had landed on an alien planet, but what kind of world was this? Who lived here? With no way to communicate and no map of the area, the protagonist decided to explore. He needed to find shelter, food, and perhaps a way to contact his home planet. As he walked through the thick underbrush, he felt as though he was being watched. His every move seemed to echo in the still air, and each step sent ripples through the surrounding vegetation. It was as if the whole planet was alive, observing him. His mind raced with possibilities, but one thing was certain: he was not alone. Hours passed, and the tension in the air grew heavier. Just as he was beginning to feel hopeless, he caught sight of movement in the distance. Something or someone was watching him. The protagonist's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure if it was a wild animal or something far more dangerous. But instinctively he crouched down, trying to blend in with the environment, hoping to remain unseen. But the watchers were quick. Before he knew it, several figures emerged from the shadows of the trees. The figures were tall and slender, with skin that shimmered in the dim light. They moved with grace, but there was something unnerving about their presence. They weren't human. They were alien women, their eyes glowing a bright shade of violet, their expressions unreadable. The protagonist froze, his mind racing with questions. Who were they? What did they want with him? He had never seen anything like them in all his years of space exploration. The leader of the group stepped forward. Her long silver hair swayed in the gentle breeze, and her eyes locked onto him with an intensity that made him shiver. She spoke in a language he didn't understand, her tone sharp and commanding. Though he couldn't understand the words, the fear in her voice was unmistakable. The protagonist's pulse quickened as he tried to make sense of the situation. Why were they so hostile? What did they know about him? And more importantly, why did they look so terrified of his presence? Before he could make a move, the alien women raised their weapons, pointing them at him. The air crackled with tension. It was clear they were ready to strike. His mind raced for an escape plan, but the reality was harsh. He was stranded on a strange planet, and these alien women seemed to want him gone, dead or alive. The first taste of danger had arrived, and with it, the realization that his survival in this alien world was going to be far more complicated than he could have ever imagined. The protagonist was trapped. The alien girls had made it clear he was no longer the lone explorer. He was an outsider in their world, and they were about to make sure he didn't survive long enough to figure out why. The protagonist stood frozen, staring at the alien women who had surrounded him. Their weapons glinted under the strange light of the alien sky, and their eyes, glowing bright violet, never left him. There was no escaping, no bargaining his way out of this. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, and his breath grew shallow as panic began to set in. The air was thick with tension, and every moment felt like it could be his last. The leader of the group stepped forward, her silver hair flowing behind her like liquid mercury. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with a look that felt almost calculating. The protagonist's mind raced. Who were they? Why were they so afraid of him? He had never encountered anything like this in all his years of traveling through space. The alien women spoke among themselves in a language that was foreign to him. Their voices sharp, like a series of high-pitched tones. The protagonist's mind struggled to make sense of their words, but he understood one thing. They were discussing him. Their fear was palpable, and it made him feel even more vulnerable. What had he done to inspire such fear? He had only just arrived on this planet. How could he be a threat to them? Suddenly, the leader spoke to him in a language he could understand. "You should not have come," she said, her voice cold and laced with authority. "This world has been without men for 113 years. Your presence is dangerous." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. 113 years without men? What did that mean? His mind struggled to process the information. The alien women had lived alone for more than a century? How had they survived? And why had they chosen to isolate themselves from men in the first place? The leader stepped closer, her violet eyes never leaving his face. "We do not need you," she said sharply, her tone now filled with something darker. "You are a reminder of the past, a past that we have long since buried." Confusion swirled in the protagonist's mind. He was no expert in alien history, but something told him that this was more than just a simple cultural difference. This was personal. Their fear of him ran deep, and it went beyond mere curiosity or surprise. It felt as though they had been preparing for this moment for a long time, waiting for someone or something to finally land on their world. "Why do you fear me?" he asked, his voice shaking despite his best efforts to remain calm. The leader didn't answer immediately. Instead, she glanced over her shoulder at the other women. They exchanged looks, and for a brief moment, it felt as though they were all caught in a tense silence, weighing something in their minds. Finally, the leader spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "You are the catalyst," she said, almost as if she were speaking to herself more than him. "Your arrival changes everything." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, but the protagonist couldn't grasp what they meant. Before he could press further, the leader raised her hand, signaling to the others. In an instant, the group moved with precision, surrounding him even more tightly. Their weapons were still aimed at him, and the sense of impending danger was almost suffocating. The protagonist's mind raced. He had no idea what these women wanted from him, but he knew one thing for certain. He had to find a way out. But as he took a cautious step backward, he realized something even more terrifying. There was nowhere to run. The dense jungle around him seemed to close in, the alien women's presence suffocating his every move. It felt as if the planet itself had turned against him. This was just the beginning. The protagonist was about to learn that his arrival on this alien world wasn't by chance, and the truth about the alien girls and their deadly intentions was far more complicated than he could have ever imagined. The first test of his survival had only just begun. The tension in the air was so thick it felt like it could suffocate him. The protagonist had been standing still for what seemed like an eternity, trying to make sense of everything. His heart was racing, and every nerve in his body screamed for him to run, but he knew it would be futile. The alien women had surrounded him with their weapons aimed at his chest, and their cold, glowing eyes followed his every move. His mind was spinning, and his throat felt dry, as though all the moisture had been drained from his body in an instant. The leader's voice broke through the silence once more, cold and commanding. "You are the one they warned us about," she said, "the one who was meant to bring the end of our peace." Her words echoed in his mind, leaving him confused and increasingly terrified. Who had warned them about him? What peace were they talking about? He had come here by accident, a simple explorer trying to survive a crash landing. But the way they looked at him, the way they spoke of him, it was as if he were a harbinger of something far worse. The women around him seemed tense, almost as though they were waiting for something or someone to make a decision. The air crackled with anticipation. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, something ancient. It was as if the leaders' words had sparked a dormant energy in the tribe, and now the time had come to face whatever truth they had been hiding for so long. Before the protagonist could respond, the leader stepped forward, her violet eyes never leaving his face. "We have lived in isolation for 113 years, she continued, her voice softer now, but still carrying an undercurrent of authority. Men were once a part of our world, but they are no more. The last of them died when the plague took them. And for over a century we have existed alone, rebuilding our society in silence. But your arrival—" Her voice faltered for just a moment. "Your arrival brings us back to the past, and we cannot afford to return to that dark time." The protagonist's mind was racing, trying to digest what she was saying. A plague had wiped out the men on this planet. That much he understood. But what did she mean by returning to the past? What was it about him, a lone survivor from another world, that was so dangerous? He opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat. The alien women had made it clear they were not interested in conversation. They didn't want him here. They wanted him gone. As the leader stepped closer, her presence imposing, she held up a hand, signaling for the other women to lower their weapons. The protagonist's body stiffened, unsure of what to do. The sudden shift in energy left him bewildered. Was this an opportunity to escape, or was it a trap? "Do you know why you're here?" the leader asked, her voice barely a whisper but sharp enough to pierce through the thick silence. He hesitated, unsure of how to answer. I don't understand," he admitted, his voice shaky. She looked at him, her expression softening ever so slightly. "You are the catalyst," she said, "the one who will decide whether we live or die. You brought the spark we have avoided for so long, and now—" Her words hung in the air, like a dark cloud. "Now we must decide whether to make you a part of our world or to cast you away." The protagonist stood frozen, realizing that his survival was no longer a matter of just escaping these women. It was about something far greater, something tied to the very essence of this alien world. He was the key, but to what? As the leader turned and motioned for the others to follow her, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just entered a game much bigger than himself. A game where his fate, and perhaps the fate of this entire alien world, rested on his next move. He had been thrust into a struggle that had been brewing for more than a century, and whether he liked it or not, he was now a player in their dangerous life-or-death game. The protagonist felt a chill run down his spine as he followed the alien leader deeper into the jungle. The air had grown thick, and the strange plants around him seemed to close in, their glowing tendrils twisting like silent watchers. The women moved silently around him, their eyes never leaving his figure, making him feel like a prisoner in a cage with invisible bars. His mind raced with confusion and fear. He had no idea what he had just walked into, but every instinct in his body told him that he was in far deeper trouble than he could have imagined. The leader, whose presence seemed to command the very air around them, led him through the dense underbrush, her silver hair flowing behind her like a spectral trail. The other women followed closely, their steps eerily synchronized. He had no choice but to keep up, his heart pounding in his chest. He had no idea where they were taking him, but it was clear that his survival depended on understanding the mysterious power these women held, and perhaps finding a way to outsmart them. Finally, they arrived at a clearing. It was unlike anything he had seen on this planet. The ground was covered with smooth, crystalline stones, and in the center stood a towering structure, an ancient temple of sorts. The walls were covered in intricate carvings, and the air around it seemed to hum with an energy that was both beautiful and unsettling. The leader turned to him, her violet eyes gleaming with intensity. "This is our sacred place," she said, her voice steady and firm. "For generations we have guarded its secrets. But now you are here, and the truth cannot be hidden any longer." The protagonist's mind raced. Sacred place? Secrets? What was this structure? Was it somehow tied to the fate of this tribe? His thoughts were interrupted when the leader motioned for him to step forward. The air seemed to grow heavier with every step he took toward the temple. As he approached, the carvings on the walls began to shift, as though the stone itself was alive, reacting to his presence. "You must understand," the leader continued, her voice softer now, almost as if she were speaking more to herself than to him. "Our world, our tribe, was not always like this. Once, men and women lived together in harmony. But that was before the plague that took all the men, leaving only us. In the years that followed, we have rebuilt, but we have also forgotten. We erased the past, thinking that we could live without it. But you—" She paused, her gaze piercing through him. "You have brought it back." The protagonist's confusion deepened. What did she mean? Was it really him, his arrival, that had triggered whatever was happening? He took a step closer to the temple, the weight of her words heavy on his shoulders. "Why me?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, overwhelmed by the weight of everything unfolding around him. The leader's eyes softened slightly, but there was still a coldness to them. "Because you are the one who can bring balance, the one who can help us restore what was lost. Or destroy everything we've worked for." She gestured to the temple. "This place holds the key to our survival, and it also holds the key to our destruction." The protagonist's mind reeled. A key? What kind of power did this ancient structure hold? And how was he, a stranger from a far-off planet, supposed to unlock it? The leader turned and motioned for him to follow her inside. The doors of the temple creaked open, revealing a dark interior. The air smelled of ancient dust and something else, something that felt both comforting and terrifying. As he stepped inside, the carvings on the walls began to glow, casting an ethereal light across the room. In the center of the room was a pedestal, and atop it lay an object, its surface smooth and glimmering in the dim light. "This," the leader said, her voice reverent, "is the artifact, the one that binds us, the one that must be protected at all costs." The protagonist approached cautiously, unsure of what he was supposed to do with it. He had no idea why he had been brought here, but the weight of the moment pressed on him, urging him to make a choice. The artifact seemed to hum with energy, as if it recognized his presence. The air around him thickened, and for the first time since his crash landing, he felt a strange connection to this place, a bond that neither he nor the alien women seemed to fully understand. The leader's voice broke through his thoughts. "The artifact is the key to everything," she said quietly. "And now, it is in your hands. What you do with it will decide the fate of this world." The protagonist looked at the artifact, his heart heavy with the realization that the power to save or destroy this alien world lay within his grasp. The weight of that knowledge felt like a crushing burden, and as he reached out to touch the artifact, he could only wonder, was he ready for what would come next? Or had he already sealed his fate? The artifact pulsed under his fingertips, a strange warmth spreading through his hand as if it were alive, breathing in sync with his own heartbeat. He could feel a weight in the air, an invisible force that seemed to surround him, pressing down on him like the gravity of the planet itself. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The protagonist's mind raced. Was this really happening? Was he truly holding the key to the survival of an entire alien civilization? One that had existed without men for over a century? The leader stood silent behind him, her eyes never leaving the artifact. Her breath was shallow, as if she too felt the enormity of the moment. "You have no idea what you hold," she whispered. "But you must decide. This artifact, this power, is more than we ever realized. It was meant to restore balance, yes, but it also has the potential to destroy everything we have built since the plague." The protagonist could feel the weight of her words sink in, the gravity of what he was about to do settling deep within him. He had come here by accident, but now it seemed as though fate had thrust him into a role far larger than anything he could have imagined. The choices before him were overwhelming. Use the artifact to help the alien girls rebuild their society, or let it be and risk destroying everything they had struggled to preserve. He hesitated, his mind torn between what he knew was right and the mysterious power of the artifact in his hand. His survival instinct screamed at him to leave, to flee the madness that had so quickly enveloped him. But deep down, he knew there was no escaping this. He had walked into a world already on the brink of collapse, and whether he liked it or not, he had become part of it. As he turned to face the leader, her expression was unreadable, her violet eyes watching him with an intensity that felt as if she could see straight into his soul. "You think you can just take it?" she asked, her voice low, almost threatening. "You think you can fix us? You don't understand the consequences." The protagonist swallowed hard. "Then explain it to me," he said, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of confusion and fear in his chest. "What is it about this artifact that makes it so dangerous? Why can't you use it yourself?" For a long moment, the leader was silent. Her gaze lingered on him, and he could see the weight of her decision in her eyes. She had led this tribe for so long, shouldering the burden of their survival, but now she seemed just as lost as he was. Finally, she spoke, her voice filled with a mixture of sorrow and resolve. "We are bound to the artifact," she said, her tone heavy. "It is the heart of our world, and yet it is also a curse. It binds us to the past we cannot escape. We thought we could control it, that we could use it to rebuild. But the artifact is not just a tool, it is a reminder of what we have lost, and what we fear we can never regain." The protagonist's mind spun. A tool of destruction? A reminder of loss? What had he really stumbled upon? Was he about to undo a century of peace in exchange for a chance to restore something that may have been better left in the past? The leader stepped closer, her voice a whisper. "You must choose, and you must choose wisely. Because once you use it, once the artifact is activated, there will be no turning back. If you choose wrong, this world and everything in it will fall, and so will we." The protagonist's eyes flicked to the artifact, his heart thundering in his chest. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about life and death for an entire world. His every instinct told him to walk away, to leave this world behind. But another part of him, the part that had always yearned for answers, for understanding, told him that this was his chance. This was his moment to make a choice that would echo through the ages. With a deep breath, he slowly withdrew his hand from the artifact, the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders like a crushing boulder. The leader's gaze never wavered, her eyes darkening with both expectation and fear. "You have made your choice," she said softly. "Now, live with it." The protagonist stepped back, feeling the ground beneath him tremble slightly, as if the entire world had shifted on its axis. He hadn't activated the artifact, hadn't made the decision that would change everything. But in that moment, he realized something even more unsettling. The choice wasn't really his to make. The artifact had already chosen, and he was merely a pawn in a game far bigger than anything he could comprehend. The weight of that realization made his heart race faster than ever before. It was only a matter of time before everything would change. And he had no idea if he would be ready for what was coming. The protagonist's decision to leave the artifact untouched seemed to settle a brief silence between him and the leader. But the stillness didn't last long. The ground beneath them trembled again, this time more violently, as though the planet itself was reacting to the weight of the moment. The trees around them swayed, their strange glowing leaves shimmering with an eerie light. A distant rumble echoed through the jungle, deep and menacing, like a warning that things were already beginning to spiral out of control. The leader's face hardened as she turned toward the trembling ground. "It's begun," she said, her voice low but firm. "You cannot undo what has already been set in motion. The artifact's presence here, your presence, has triggered something ancient. Something we've been trying to keep buried. Fear flashed in the protagonist's chest, his pulse quickening. Triggered what? What's happening? The leader's eyes locked onto his, filled with a mix of dread and resignation. The artifact is bound to our world, yes, but it is also linked to something darker. An old power, a force we've forgotten how to control. And now it's awake. She paused, looking around as if expecting something or someone to appear from the shadows. You've released it even if you didn't mean to. The protagonist's mind raced, trying to understand what she was saying. The artifact had been dormant for so long, kept hidden away to prevent catastrophe. But in his attempt to leave it untouched, he had somehow triggered something far worse. He could feel it now, the palpable tension in the air, the sense that something was about to break free. Before he could respond, the ground shook again, more violently this time. The air was thick with an unsettling energy, and from the depths of the jungle strange sounds echoed, low growls, screeches, and the unmistakable sound of something massive moving through the trees. The women around him tensed, their eyes wide with panic. The leader turned toward them, issuing commands in their alien language, but her voice was drowned out by the deafening noise that seemed to be growing louder by the second. "We need to move," the leader snapped, her voice now urgent. "It's coming for us." The protagonist barely had time to process her words before the first of the monstrous creatures appeared from the jungle. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering, with sharp, glistening teeth and eyes that burned with an unnatural fire. It was the creature that had been awakened by the artifact's power, a force of destruction that the alien tribe had feared for generations. The leader grabbed his arm, pulling him back toward the temple. "Move!" she shouted. As they ran, the air behind them seemed to ripple with the force of the creature's approach. The protagonist's heart raced as the ground quaked beneath him, the terror of what was to come settling in his chest. There was no escaping it now. The artifact's awakening had set everything in motion, and they were running out of time. The sound of the creature's monstrous roars grew louder, closer with each passing second, as if the very earth itself trembled beneath its fury. The protagonist's legs burned as he followed the leader through the thick jungle, branches slapping against his face, the alien underbrush entangling his feet. He could barely keep up with her as she dashed forward with startling speed, her long silver hair flying behind her like a ghost. She moved with a determination that made it clear. She knew exactly what they were running from. "Where are we going?" the protagonist gasped, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he stumbled over a root. "What is that thing? And why is it after us?" The leader didn't answer immediately, her eyes scanning the darkening path ahead. The creature's growls vibrated through the ground, growing steadily closer. Every instinct told him to stop and fight, but the terror in the leader's eyes told him there was no time for heroics. This wasn't just some wild beast. They were running from something far worse. "There's a place," she finally said, her voice strained but urgent. "A sanctuary deep in the jungle. We can't let it reach us before we get there. The sanctuary." He didn't know what she meant, but the raw desperation in her voice made him trust her. He pushed forward, every ounce of his strength focused on just keeping up. Behind him, the sound of the creature crashing through the jungle grew louder, and with it, the sense of impending doom. He could almost feel its breath on his neck, its hunger. They reached the edge of the jungle, where the trees thinned out to reveal a vast clearing, and in the center stood a massive stone structure, something ancient, just like the artifact. It was a temple, but unlike the one they had visited before, this one seemed untouched, as if it had been waiting for them. Its walls were cracked and weathered, but the energy radiating from it was undeniable. The leader rushed toward the entrance, glancing back to make sure the protagonist was close behind. The ground shook beneath them as the creature finally broke through the trees. It was enormous. Scales that glistened with an unnatural sheen, claws that dug deep into the earth as it lumbered forward. Its eyes locked onto the protagonist, a hatred burning in them that made his blood run cold. This was no mere predator. It was something older, something that had been bound by the power of the artifact, and now it was free. "No." The leader screamed, her voice filled with terror. "Get inside! Quickly!" With everything he had, the protagonist sprinted toward the temple. He didn't know if it would offer them any protection, but it was the only chance they had. The entrance loomed before him, dark and foreboding. As he crossed the threshold, the air around him seemed to hum, the walls vibrating with ancient energy. He turned just in time to see the creature stop at the edge of the clearing, its eyes burning with a primal fury. But it didn't follow. The entrance to the sanctuary glowed faintly, a barrier of sorts, keeping the creature at bay. The protagonist's heart pounded in his chest as he leaned against the stone wall, catching his breath. He didn't know what kind of power this place held, but it had just saved their lives. For now. The leader collapsed beside him, her face pale and grim. "We've bought some time," she said, her voice low, her eyes haunted. "But this is far from over. The artifact has awakened the creature, and it won't stop until it destroys everything." He looked at her, his mind racing. "Then we need to destroy the artifact." The leader shook her head, her expression darkening. "It's not that simple. The artifact is the key to everything. Without it, we all perish. You must understand, this is a battle for the future of this world. And the creature isn't just an enemy. It is a part of the world's curse." The air inside the sanctuary seemed to thicken with those words, the weight of their meaning settling over him like a dark cloud. The artifact, the creature, the tribe, everything was tied together in a way he couldn't yet understand. He had come to this world by accident, but now he realized his arrival was no accident at all. He had a choice to make, and the fate of this alien world rested in his hands. The creature might have been kept at bay for now, but the true battle was just beginning.